Class, we finally made it. The final system for Anatomy and Physiology 2, the reproductive system. We are also going to be covering a little bit about development, but we're really not going to go through the entire process of 9 months, fetal development, the stages, as much as I would love to. This is specifically going to be talking about the reproductive systems, the physiology of how they work, why we have them, what is some modern medicine equivalents in terms of birth control, what happens as we age, puberty, and sexually transmitted disease. So let's just jump right into it. What is the purpose of the reproductive system? That is going to be what we're going to cover in this first video. And to answer that, we're going to have an introduction to meiosis and how development process starts, and the similarities between the male and the female system. I know that a lot of people have been like, oh, we're so different, there's so many things with us. Biologically, there's a lot of things that are similar, but there's also a lot of things that are different. And it's really interesting when you start to put the pieces together to see like, oh, this is on this track, this is on this track. Here's a tidbit that won't be on the exam, but is fascinating nevertheless. Why do men have nipples? Doesn't really serve a biological function. It's because when men are developing, we all start off essentially as females in terms of our biology, and the SRY gene is a big predominant male gene, and that kicks on after nipples are developed. Now, tidbit aside, the importance of the reproductive system. Every single, I was going to say animal, but every single thing that is classified as being alive has to have some way to propagate the species. Essentially, you have to be able to continue the species on to be considered alive. Viruses don't have any form of reproduction, which is why they are considered not alive, compared to bacteria, which have some forms of reproduction, which is why they are considered alive. You have to propagate the species. Now, this system is in a state of hibernation in humans until puberty. And that's that real transitional period when childhood ends and adulthood begins, which is triggered by reproductive organs becoming mature and you are sexually fecundant, meaning that you can propagate the species, for lack of a better word. Starting with the similarities, we have gonads. These are going to be your primary sex organs, and they are the most important organs for both genders. They are going to secrete sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen. Now, both testosterone and estrogen are going to be found in men and women. They play incredibly important functions, and a lot of the time, testosterone actually gets converted into estrogen. So if you ever hear a man being like, oh, the estrogen, that's a girl chemical, it controls more of your life than you actually think, which we'll talk about a little bit. But first, gonads. They are the primary sex organ. For women, it's ovaries. For men, it's the testes. Now, gonads produce gametes, sex cells, through the process of meiosis. Me is the important distinction there, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but just think about me. So, gonads produce gametes through the process of meiosis. Male gametes are sperm, and female gametes are ova, or egg cells. Both genders can have additional organs and structures called accessory reproductive organs that contribute to the functioning of respective species. Breasts are an example of an accessory reproductive organ. Now, cell division. All the cells in your body, your skin cells, how come we still have skin? Cells can make more cells. That process is called mitosis. All somatic cells are capable of this. It's why that you have skin cells. It's why the lining of your stomach gets replaced so often. Every single cell can actually replicate itself. And they're identical. Mitosis, MIT, identical cells. meiosis. This is special and it's only reserved for gametes. There's mitosis, which is all somatic cells, and then there's meiosis, special cell division, only reserved for your gametes. Now, mitosis produce identical cells, where meiosis is going to produce non-identical cells. This is why there's so much variation in terms of if you have siblings, why you don't all look the same. Now, fertilization. That's just the process of when a sperm and an egg cells fuse together and form an offspring. It is called a zygote. When they are taking essentially 23 chromosomes, putting them together, you got a zygote. Now, the zygote eventually divides to produce all the cells of the new individual. If there is a deviation from the correct number of chromosomes, either if it's coming from the ovum or the sperm, that is a birth defect. A common one that I can just think of offhand is an extra chromosome, which can lead to Down syndrome. Now, parental chromosomes come from an individual's father, and maternal chromosomes come from the mother. Each pair of chromosomes have the same genes, and that's just segments of DNA. And pairs are called homologous chromosomes. Matching genes on homologous chromosomes have different variants or alleles. Tripping over all my words tonight. Now, this whole process is essentially the study of genetics. It's crazy to know what you can actually do with genetics, but what I'm really looking for in this exam is to understand the difference between mitosis and meiosis and why the difference creates gametes versus traditional cells. We have this here, and mitosis, all somatic cells, you produce two identical daughter cells. Meiosis, only in gametes, and you create different daughter cells. They are not identical, and instead of having 46 chromosomes, if it's a human and that's average, it has 23. This is because you have to take a gamete plus a gamete. Zygote. Gamete, gamete, zygote. Male gamete is sperm. It was produced by meiosis, so it has 23 chromosomes. Those are parental chromosomes because they're coming from the dad. Ovum, gamete from the mom, produced at the ovary. Sperm, testy, sorry about that, ovary. The ovum is a gamete. It was produced by meiosis. It has 23 chromosomes, 23 maternal chromosomes, because they're coming from a mom. When a gamete and a gamete meet each other, they essentially fuse and become a zygote. That fusion is the process called fertilization, and all of your cells will be produced from that single cell, which came together from two gametes. That is what I want you to know for this section primarily. However, everything here is important, but understand meiosis, how the development process starts, shared similarities between the male and female system. However, we're going to go deep into this. In our next video, we're going to be talking all about the boys.